family, can we take a moment not just to breathe, but to be honest with ourselves? Because marriage, oh, it's not just about the pictures on the gram, the matching outfits, or the fairy tale captions. Marriage is ministry. Marriage is warfare. Marriage is healing. And yes, marriage is joy if you're willing to work the soil it's planted in. You see, too many of us walked down the aisle in love, but not in alignment. We said I do to a person, but forgot to say I'm ready to the process. And the truth is, God didn't just call us to marry someone who makes us happy. He called us to build with someone who will help us become whole. So today, I don't just want to talk about marriage. I want to talk about miracles in motion, because when two surrendered people come together under God's design, family, heaven touches earth, you know there's something deeply sacred about two people choosing each other, again and again, not just on the wedding day, but in the middle of storms, in the silence, in the messiness of life. But before we talk about choosing someone, let's talk about choosing healing. Because no marriage thrives on broken pieces that haven't been surrendered. Wholeness before union is not just a catchy phrase. It's survival. Don't expect your spouse to complete what only God can heal. A ring doesn't erase childhood wounds. A ceremony doesn't cover up insecurity. The truth is, you can't merge into we if your me is still bleeding. And sometimes the most powerful act of love is not saying I do to someone else. It's saying I'm ready to the deep work within yourself. Communication. Oh, we think it's just talking. But family, it's not about who speaks the loudest. It's about who listens with grace. It's easy to talk when things are good. But real communication shows up when egos want to fight, when silence is screaming, and you choose to lean in anyway. Listening with your heart means hearing what's not said out loud. It's sensing fear behind frustration, pain behind distance. It's looking past the tone and reaching for the heart. That's love that's mature. That's love that stays, honor. Now that's the glue. You want your marriage to last. Don't just love your spouse. Honor them, because what you respect, you protect. Honor means you don't expose their weakness in front of others. It means you speak their name with kindness even when they're not in the room. It means covering them, not enabling but protecting. When honor leaves a marriage, resentment enters quietly. Don't let it. Choose to make honor louder. Some of you have been fighting battles with your spouse, but you haven't fought for your spouse. There's a difference. Pray more than you complain. Family, the enemy is not your husband. It's not your wife. The real war isn't with flesh and blood, it's with what's trying to tear you both apart. Your war room is more powerful than your words. Stop using your mouth to tear down what your prayers should be building. Get on your knees not to beg for a changed partner, but to ask for a renewed heart. And let's talk about intimacy, because the world sold us a shallow version of it. It's more than physical, it's spiritual safety. It's knowing you can be fully seen and still fully accepted. It's trust that isn't earned just once, but maintained daily. Intimacy says, you can come close, even to the parts I'm afraid of. That's where the real connection lies. And if you want a thriving marriage, protect that space like it's sacred, because it is. Now forgiveness. This one cuts deep, because love will test you. Your spouse will fail you, not because they're bad, but because they're human. And forgiveness isn't about forgetting what they did. It's about choosing not to hold it against them every day. It's a decision to keep loving when it's hard, when your pride says walk away and grace says stay. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the wound, but it sets you free from carrying it. Finally, let this settle in your spirit. Your marriage is a reflection of covenant, not convenience. This is bigger than feelings, bigger than good days, bigger than romance. This is holy ground, and holy things require stewardship. Don't build your marriage like it's temporary. Build it like it's sacred. Because when two surrendered hearts align with heaven's blueprint, family, miracles become normal. That's what a God-ordained marriage looks like. It doesn't just survive, it ministers. It doesn't just love, it heals. You know. Sometimes we get so caught up in preparing for the wedding that we forget to prepare for the warfare. Because marriage, real marriage, is not just a destination, it's a journey of constant surrender. And let me tell you something honest. If you step into marriage expecting someone else to fill the voids that only God can touch, you're setting yourself up for disappointment wrapped in romance. You must pursue wholeness before union. Why? Because an unhealed heart in a marriage bleeds on the one who never cut it. And too often we hand our partner broken pieces, expecting them to create wholeness. Family, only God can do that. Don't put pressure on your spouse to be your savior. They were never meant to sit on a throne they didn't die on. Communication isn't just about who talks the most, it's about who listens from the soul. You can say 1,000 words and still be misunderstood. But when you listen with humility, when you speak with love and not with defense, healing can take root. Some of us don't need new partners. We need new patterns, real talk. The way you speak to your spouse can either build them or bury them. Choose words that plant life, not insecurity. Choose presence over proving a point, because in marriage it's not about winning. It's about understanding. Let me speak this into someone's spirit. Honor is oxygen. Without it, the marriage suffocates. What you honor, you cover. What you dishonor, you expose. And when you constantly expose your spouse's flaws, to your friends, your family, or even in your thought, you chip away at the sacredness of the bond. Honor them in public. Honor them in private, even when they don't deserve it, especially then. Because honor isn't based on perfection, it's rooted in position. And when God joins two people, he doesn't expect perfection. He expects reverence. And I know you're tired, you've prayed, you've cried, you've fought. But have you fought spiritually? Because marriage doesn't just require love. It requires intercession. Pray more than you complain. That man isn't the enemy. That woman isn't the problem. The enemy's strategy is to divide what God has called to multiply. But here's the truth. Your knees are more powerful than your opinions. You want change. Take it to God before you take it to the group chat. Your marriage needs less judgment and more Jesus. Now let's get real about intimacy, because true intimacy doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in the heart. It's about feeling safe. Emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's when your spouse becomes the safest place for your soul to land, not the battlefield where you hide your deepest fears. Intimacy is not performance, it's presence. And if you want that deep, soul-rooted connection, you have to create a space where vulnerability isn't punished, but cherished. Forgiveness, that's not easy, I know, but it's essential. Because marriage will stretch your capacity to forgive more than anything else in life. And if you carry every offense like a weapon, you'll end up wounding the very person you promised to protect. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you're choosing freedom over bitterness. Don't keep rehearsing old pain, release it. Healing doesn't happen by holding on, it happens when you let go. And hear me clearly, this isn't just love, this is covenant. It's not based on how you feel, it's based on what you vowed. Covenant says, even when it's hard, I'm staying. Even when I don't understand, I'm trusting. Even when it's not convenient, I'm committed. Because when God writes the story, it may not be perfect, but it will be purposeful. And that family is the kind of love worth fighting for. Let's get real, family. Marriage is not just a destination. It's a calling. And before God ever gives you a person to love, he gives you a mirror to confront. Because the truth is, if you don't deal with you, you'll end up asking someone else to carry wounds they didn't create. Wholeness before union is not a cute catchphrase. It's survival. You've got to stop expecting your spouse to fix what you refuse to face in yourself. That's not love, that's pressure, and pressure without healing becomes punishment. Marriage is not a rescue mission. Marriage is not therapy. If you walk into it broken and silent, you'll make covenant with your pain, not your partner. We crave connection, but let's talk about what creates it, communication, and I don't mean just checking in or arguing to be right. I mean the kind of talking that disarms pride and invites presence. The kind that says, I want to understand you more than I want to defend me. Listen, family, some of you are speaking, but not connecting, because your words are wearing armor. Drop the armor. Marriage isn't a battlefield. It's a safe place, and safety requires softness. You don't build intimacy by being louder. You build it by being braver with your truth. Let me tell you, love may bring you together, but honor will keep you together. And not just when things are sweet and shiny. Honor is tested in conflict. When the emotions rise, when the flaws come out, when the past starts speaking louder than the present, will you still choose to honor? Because what you disrespect will eventually disconnect. You can't ask God to bless what you refuse to protect. Don't just honor your spouse when they perform. Honor them because God trusted you with them. Their soul is in your care. That's sacred, and I want to speak this boldly. Stop fighting each other and start fighting for each other. Marriage is not a playground, it's a prayer ground. Stop letting the enemy convince you that your partner is your problem. He knows if he can divide your house, he can destroy your purpose. Pray more than you post. Intercede more than you interrogate. If you're not bringing your spouse before God in prayer, then don't be surprised when the cracks start showing. A praying spouse is a powerful spouse. Heaven listens when covenant people speak, and let's go deeper, because intimacy isn't skin. Deep, it's soul. Deep, true intimacy says, I see you, and I'm not leaving. It's built when you sit in each other's silence without demanding words. When you hold space, not just hands. Intimacy isn't created in the bedroom, it's revealed there. If you don't feel emotionally safe, the physical won't heal you. If you don't trust your partner with your soul, you'll never fully give them your body. So ask yourself, are you just touching each other, or are you reaching each other? Forgiveness, that's the weighty one, because love will test your limits, but forgiveness will expand your heart, and yes, it hurts. Betrayal, disappointment, even silence can wound. But if you choose to carry every offense, you'll end up crushed by the weight of it. Forgiveness is a choice to be free, even if the apology never comes. It's saying, I'm not letting this moment define our future, and listen to me, forgiveness doesn't erase the truth, it releases the right to relive it. This is bigger than feelings, family. Marriage is not a convenience, it's a covenant. And covenant means you don't quit when it's hard. You grow, you humble yourself, you love even when you're not understood. Because when two people choose each other under God's hand, and keep choosing each other through pain, through growth, through healing, they don't just make marriage work. They make it holy, and that kind of love, that's where the miracle begins. Let's be honest, marriage will not only reveal how much you love someone, it will reveal how well you've loved yourself. Because the truth is, we don't rise to the level of our intentions, we fall to the level of our healing. And if you step into marriage hoping that love will erase pain, you're not preparing for partnership, you're preparing for disappointment. Wholeness before union isn't optional. It's divine wisdom. God didn't design your spouse to be your bandage. They're not there to patch you up. They're there to partner with you. And you can't build covenant if your foundation is cracked with unspoken wounds. So many couples are living together but disconnected, because we've mistaken noise for communication. But real communication is not just about speaking. It's about revealing. Can you speak the truth without fear? Can you listen without building a case in your mind? Can you be present, not just physically, but emotionally? Because family, connection doesn't die from silence. It dies from emotional neglect wrapped in routine. You can talk every day and still feel miles apart if your words don't carry vulnerability. Real love listens, real love leans in, real love doesn't just talk, it hears. Now let's talk about something we don't mention enough: honor. We ask for trust, but we don't give honor. We want loyalty, but we forget that honor builds it. And here's the raw truth: when you dishonor your spouse, you slowly dishonor your covenant. Honor looks like covering them in prayer when they're weak. It looks like protecting their reputation when you're upset. It looks like reminding yourself of who they are in God when all you see is what they're not doing. Because when you lose honor, you make the sacred feel common, and nothing holy thrives in dishonor. There will be moments when you feel like giving up, moments when you question if it's worth it, but hear me, marriage is not the absence of struggle, it's the commitment to struggle together, and when the enemy comes knocking, and he will, you need more than emotion. You need prayer. Stop fighting on the surface when the real battle is spiritual. Pray more than you vent. Intercede more than you accuse, because some shifts won't happen through conversations. They'll only happen through consecration. If you want heaven in your home, then take your home to heaven in prayer. And yes, let's talk about intimacy. Not just the kind you feel in moments of passion, but the kind you build in everyday presence. Intimacy is created in the moments no one sees. The comfort in the silence, the honesty in the tears, the trust in the tiny acts of tenderness. If your heart doesn't feel safe, your body never truly will. Intimacy is not performance, it's permission, the permission to be fully known, deeply loved, and gently held in your truth. That kind of closeness isn't automatic, it's cultivated, protected, watered with patience. Forgiveness, it's not easy, and let's not pretend it is. But unforgiveness is a slow poison. It won't just hurt your marriage, it will harden your soul. Forgiveness is not a reward for good behavior. It's a gift you give to your future. Because if you want a marriage that breathes life, you can't keep dragging the dead weight of every offense into each new day. Let it go, not because they deserve it, but because you do, and because healing has a sound, and it starts with the soft whisper of, "I release it." Don't forget, this is covenant, not convenience. This is a sacred assignment, the kind of love that requires dying to self, not running for the exit when things get uncomfortable. God doesn't call us to easy marriages. He calls us to holy ones, and when two hearts are willing, when surrender meets grace, when love meets the cross family, marriage becomes a move of God. Let's not pretend. Marriage isn't just about falling in love. It's about staying in alignment, and staying in alignment isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's warfare, because love without healing becomes survival, and survival isn't what God called you to. He called you to wholeness before union. If you're still bleeding from what your father didn't say, from what your mother couldn't show, from the betrayals you never talked about, don't cover it with vows, heal it with truth. Marriage is not a shortcut to wholeness. It's a magnifier of everything you haven't dealt with. So if you want love that lasts, start by loving yourself enough to heal before you build. Communication, let's go there, because most people don't lack love. They lack understanding. And understanding isn't about who talks first. It's about who chooses humility over ego. If you only listen to reload your defense, you're not in love, you're in battle mode. And marriage isn't war against your partner, it's war for your partner. You have to be willing to say, "Help me understand what you're not saying out loud." Because often it's not the words, it's the wounds behind them, and healing only happens when we stop shouting and start seeing. Now let me talk to the ones who feel unseen in their marriage, the ones who feel like effort is one-sided. Can I remind you of something sacred? Honor doesn't wait for perfection. It chooses to see God in your spouse, even when your feelings can't find them. Honor is the fuel of covenant. When you speak honor, you create safety. When you show honor, you open hearts, and when honor dies, intimacy follows. So choose to protect what you vowed to build. Don't speak death over what you promised to nurture. What you won't cover, the enemy will attack. And listen, if you're not praying over your marriage, you're leaving it exposed. There's no such thing as a prayerless covenant that thrives. Pray more than you vent. Pray more than you post. Pray more than you panic. The real battle is not your spouse's tone. It's the enemy trying to silence your unity. Some breakthroughs won't come through talking, they'll only come through kneeling. You don't just need communication, you need intercession. Cover your marriage in the Spirit. Cover your spouse in grace, because the enemy can't steal what's guarded by God. Now let's touch on intimacy. Not the kind that happens with candles and music, but the kind that happens when your soul says, I trust you with my silence. That's real intimacy. It's when your vulnerability is not a liability. It's a connection. It's when being fully seen doesn't feel scary, it feels safe, and that only grows when trust is nourished. Intimacy without emotional safety is just routine, but intimacy with trust, that's divine, that's holy. That's healing, and yes, there will be offense, there will be disappointment, but hear me, forgiveness is not optional if wholeness is the goal. You cannot build a future if you keep dragging the past into every conversation. And forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay, it means you're okay to let it go. You're okay to stop rehearsing pain like its identity, because if God forgave you while you were still failing, who are we to withhold grace from the person we vowed to love? Marriage is not about finding someone who never hurts you. It's about choosing someone you'll keep walking with, even after the hurt. Covenant doesn't run. Covenant roots. Covenant says, this is hard, but we're not quitting. This hurts, but we're healing. This is messy, but we're covered. Because when love becomes more than a feeling, when it becomes an act of worship, your marriage stops being a transaction and becomes a testimony. And family, that's where the miracle is. Let me tell you something real. Marriage is not the fairy tale they sold you. It's not just about the beautiful dress, the perfect ring, or the #worthy photos. It's about purpose colliding with process. God doesn't give you a spouse to complete you. He gives you a spouse to partner with you in the work of becoming, and becoming isn't always easy. Sometimes love will stretch you so far that it feels like breaking. But it's not breaking, it's building. Building a foundation that won't shake when feelings fade. Because let's be clear, marriage will expose what you tried to hide. And if you haven't done the inner work before you say I do, marriage will do it for you. Don't walk into covenant expecting your partner to be your savior. That job is taken. Your spouse is not your therapist, your healer, or your God. They are a gift, not a fix. That's why wholeness before union is not just a suggestion, it's survival. Because a broken heart left unchecked becomes a sharp weapon in the hands of someone you love. And we don't need more romantic moments. We need more emotional maturity. You can't love well when you're still bleeding. And God is not trying to bless a bond that's built on brokenness and denial. He wants truth. Now hear this. Love doesn't mean much if you can't communicate. And I'm not talking about surface, level check-ins. I'm talking about soul-level connection, communication that brings clarity, not confusion. You have to be willing to listen to understand, not to respond. You have to create a space where honesty isn't punished. A space where I feel isn't met with defensiveness but with care, because the goal isn't to win the argument. The goal is to win each other's hearts again and again. And one of the deepest ways to win each other's hearts is through honor. I don't mean flattery. I mean reverence. I mean seeing your spouse the way God sees them, even when your feelings don't match. You cannot carry covenant if your words constantly carry criticism. Speak life. Call them what heaven calls them. Honor creates atmosphere. Where there's honor, there's trust. Where there's trust, there's peace. And where there's peace, intimacy can flourish. But let's not be naive. Marriage is not a spiritual break. It's a spiritual battleground. If you're not praying for your spouse, you're leaving them uncovered. Prayer is the weapon that wins wars before they start. You can't argue a demon. You have to pray it. You want change? Go to your knees. God sees what your words can't fix. Cover your home in prayer, your communication in grace, and your union in worship. Because what God joins, hell will always try to separate. But it only wins if you stay silent. Intimacy. Let's talk. Real intimacy is not just about physical closeness. It's about emotional safety. It's knowing your soul can breathe in their presence, that you're not performing, that you're not earning love, you're resting in it. That kind of intimacy is birthed through trust, not touch. If you don't feel safe emotionally, physical connection will feel forced. Build a space where your hearts can undress before your bodies ever do. Because vulnerability is the gate to true oneness, and then comes forgiveness, and I know. It's hard, but marriage will humble your pride and test your grace. You will be disappointed, but the choice is yours. Carry the pain or release it. You don't get to build a thriving future while dragging the past like a suitcase. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's saying, I choose love over ego. I choose peace over resentment. And every time you forgive, you're pulling your marriage out of the hands of the enemy and back into the hands of God. Marriage is not just about love, it's about covenant. A divine agreement sealed not by perfection, but by commitment. The kind that stays when it's hard, the kind that works when it's broken, the kind that keeps saying yes, even through tears, because when you love like God loves, sacrificial, selfless, steady, that's when your marriage stops surviving and starts thriving. And that's where God's glory rests. Family, let me speak to your spirit before I speak to your situation. Marriage is not just a desire, it's a divine assignment. And before you step into that covenant, you have to understand something foundational. God is more interested in your preparation than your picture, perfect ceremony. You can't pray for a kingdom marriage and prepare with a broken mindset. Marriage will not erase your insecurities, it will expose them. It won't hide your wounds, it will reveal them. And if you're still asking someone to love the parts of you that you keep hiding, that's not partnership, that's pressure. You don't need a partner to complete you. You need wholeness to meet them. We talk about love, but do we talk about emotional responsibility? Because real love takes ownership. It doesn't wait for the other person to fix it. It asks, what part of this pain belongs to me? Marriage is a mirror. It shows you everything you didn't heal in your single season. And if you don't face yourself, you will weaponize your pain in the name of communication. Listen, love cannot grow where ego leads. Humility is the soil where intimacy is planted. Can you apologize first, even when your pride is screaming? Can you listen longer than your offense lasts? Communication is not just words. It's intention, it's energy, it's spirit, led clarity. You can't build unity with surface talk and passive, aggressive silence. Some of you are talking but not speaking. You're hearing but not listening. Communication that heals sounds like, I don't need to be right. I want to be close. It's a choice to value connection over control. And when you stop seeing conflict as something to avoid and start seeing it as an opportunity to understand, you start building emotional safety, and safety is where hearts open. Now let's talk about honor. Because you cannot keep what you don't protect. Honor isn't seasonal. It's not just for the date nights and the anniversaries. Honor is the quiet discipline of choosing respect when frustration is loud. It's speaking well of your spouse in public and in private. It's refusing to let a temporary offense create a permanent fracture. Because when you stop honoring your partner, you start opening the door to resentment. And wherever resentment sits, intimacy starts to rot. Honor is the oxygen of covenant, and we can't ignore this. Marriage is spiritual warfare. The enemy doesn't attack where there's no purpose. So if you feel the weight, the resistance, the tension, don't panic. Pray. Don't just reactress. Bond in the spirit. A prayerless marriage is an unguarded home. When you fight in the flesh, you'll always lose what was meant to be preserved in the spirit. If you want supernatural peace, use supernatural tools. Pray over their mind, pray over their heart. Pray even when they don't see what's happening, because hell trembles when a couple prays together. Now, intimacy, true intimacy isn't built in the bed, it's built in trust. It's not about performance, it's about presence. Can I rest with you without fear? Can I bring you my shame and not feel judged? Can I be vulnerable and still be valued? Real intimacy is not rushed, it's reverence. It's cultivated through consistency. When you make emotional safety the foundation, physical connection becomes a reflection, not a replacement, for true closeness. And when you're hurt, and you'll need forgiveness like air. And hear me clearly, forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It's saying, I'm not going to keep reliving what God is trying to redeem. Unforgiveness builds silent walls between two hearts that once burned for each other. And those walls don't fall with time, they fall with grace. Let it go. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Because holding on costs you more than releasing it ever will. Marriage is not about never falling. It's about choosing to rise together every single time. It's about staying rooted when the storms try to pull you apart. It's about choosing each other over and over through conflict, through growth, through seasons that feel like stretching and stripping. This is holy ground, and when God is in it, what was hard becomes holy, and what was broken becomes beautiful. That's not just marriage, that's ministry. You said, give me conclusion for whole speech, ChatGPT said. Here's a powerful conclusion for your motivational speech in the heartfelt, spirit-filled style of STEPHINE IKE, tying together all the emotional and spiritual threads. So, to every heart listening, to the newlyweds still learning the rhythm, to the seasoned couples weathering the storm, and to the ones waiting with hope, remember this. Marriage is not just a gift, it's a calling, a sacred space where heaven touches earth. Where two imperfect people choose each other every single day, not because it's always easy, but because it's always worth it. Don't chase perfection, chase presence. Don't idolize moments, build legacy. A happy marriage isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing it together with grace, with prayer, with humility, and with God at the center. Because when Christ is your foundation, what breaks you won't bury you. It will build you. Keep showing up, keep forgiving, keep praying, keep choosing love even when it's hard to feel, and know this. What you're building isn't just a home, it's a testimony. A living, breathing declaration that says, God is still in the business of making two become one, and calling it good. Now go, not just in love, but in covenant, and watch what God does with two surrendered hearts.